Roosevelt Coleman. It was always interesting to me because you always heard about Franklin D. Roosevelt. Franklin D. Roosevelt, the President of the United States. Well, he wasn't Roosevelt. He was Roosevelt Coleman. And he was a model for me. He was my mother's father. What's interesting about him, I've had to kind of piece it together. He got a teaching certificate and then went to school and got his bachelor's degree. His degree certificate says 1936. And then he became a principal at schools in Biloxi, Texas. And then in the 1940s, and my mother has absolutely a photographic memory of this, but he started a burial insurance company and a burial and a mortuary, and he built it into eventually 5 funeral homes across East Texas. When he died, he was memorialized in the Texas House and Senate. I was in Austin at that time. I was amazed. He was a businessman who I studied all the time. One of the things I learned from Roosevelt was you got to be in continuous motion if you're going to get anything done. And he was. I have a lot of great memories, and they were always in the business of money being made, I'll never forget one time he gave me a set of golf clubs. Now you got to understand, there was no place for a black man to play golf in East Texas. The concept was, but there was these beautiful golf clubs, and I, as an Army brat, had played golf, so I knew what they were. So he gave them to me. I said, "What is this?" He said, "I got them for my retirement," and that was the thing. He had been a county agent. He had been a principal and teacher in public schools. He had been a county agent, and he had run a mortuary. He was in continuous motion. And I remember him handing me these clubs, and I'm like going, "Papa?" That's what we called him. He says, "What is this?" Where'd you get this? "I don't know. They gave it to me at a dinner." And I still have those clubs. It was amazing. The other thing I remember is that, when you had to work. You want to get some money? You had to work. And so for me, I had to work funerals. And working funerals was basically you put on a suit, you move the casket around, you're very somber and drawn, and you get into the church and you get out. That was what I did. The benefits, you got a little change from your grandfather, and lots of pretty girls showed up at funerals. So you got to see girls, they got to see you in your suit, and you were doing something important. Now, the thing I did not like doing was digging graves. So I would never go in the grave digging detail if I could avoid it. But every now and again, we just didn't have enough hands on deck, and I'd have to go out and help. But I tried to avoid that. My greatest memory of my grandfather was one time he came to me and he said, "We got a funeral in Mississippi." Now that's driving all the way across Louisiana from East Texas. I don't know, 10 hours, I think. I think we were going to Gulfport, Mississippi, in the hearse. Can you imagine driving down I-10 in a big old hearse with a casket in the back, and you're driving with your grandfather, and you have 10 hours of uninterrupted time with him? We had the best time. I got to ask every doggone question you could possibly ask. And we would stop off and get a soda pop and something to eat. And, the thing about it is, that's the culture. The idea that you had someone's remains in the back was no reason to stop living your life. And so we got to Gulfport, and I remember we got mega somber, did our deal, got out of there, drove all the way back. And I learned so much from him about business, about people, about the how did he had employees at the funeral homes. He had people who served coffee at wakes. He had ladies who went around and collected insurance premiums. Back in those days, you sold an insurance policy. Well, guess what? You actually went to their house and picked up that dollar or two for the policy. It was called running a debit, and that's what he did. And he had a network chain of women who drove around the country picking up every month the insurance premium. Uh, I learned from him that it is a continuous activity if you're going to be in business. And also, I learned from him that it's all about relationships. I mean, he wasn't famous, he wasn't an elected official, he didn't get his name in the paper. But the fact of the matter is that when he died, everyone knew a titan in the community had died. He was a relationship guy, and I take my skills in building relationships from him. Now, I can also tell this little story. My cousin and I, we spent a lot of time at that house. You know, I would go from Jamestown to Mount Union. I loved it because I had two sets of grandparents who I loved, and they loved to compete for my attention. And so I had a great time. And my cousin and I tell this story and he'll laugh. But you know, we used to. My grandfather would come home and take a nap in the middle of the day. You know, he's getting up there a little bit, and he had change on on the desk, and we would go in there and rob him blind. And I think that he just thought he was just tickled about it, and then he would give us something to do to earn the money. But we learned from him. We saw him in motion, and the fact of the matter is that he was part of these freedom colonies. He had gone off to college and gotten a degree back in the 30s. He had taught himself business, and he had become a, a successful businessman in the community. And even today, those funeral homes exist, run by his son.